the bass top.
G'day guys, it's Robbo and welcome to another Pro Audio Suite tip. This week it's a bit of a look behind the scenes as opposed to a tip. A couple of weeks ago I was showing you around the template in Pro Tools that I created for the podcast episodes. And on that video, a good friend of the show, Bill Ansoir, asked if I could give you a bit of a peek behind the Pro Tools session where I created the opener. So I thought, well, here it is. Let's have a quick look. So, look, in the big scheme of things, it's actually not particularly difficult. There's not a lot involved in it, but we can certainly talk through it and have a look. So, I've got the session open here, and this is the template that I use for radio imaging, which obviously lent itself to this. So that's the one that I used. Up the top here, we've got a bunch of voiceover tracks. Now, in my radio imaging template, I usually have a male voice, a female voice, and then a track for voice effects. But as we'll see, I've sort of used those a little bit differently here. SOT for me stands for sound off tape. So that's movie drops, or if I'm doing audio post-production, obviously that's the dialogue that comes with the vision. And then music is quite obvious. Sound design is quite obvious, and sound effects. And then down here, we'll have a look later. We go down, all this stuff feeds into different buses down here before it goes out. The final mix down the end here. And I also have a metering channel to put my meters on so I can keep an eye on levels. First lesson 101 of audio engineering. So I guess the first thing to do for those of you who don't know it, let's just have a quick listen down.
Y'all ready to be history? Get started.
Welcome.
Hi.
Hello, everyone.
To the Pro Audio Suite.
These guys are professional. They're motivated.
With Tech to the VO stars. George Whittam, founder of Source Elements. Robert Marshall, international audio engineer. Darren Robbo Robertson. And global voice. Andrew Peters. Thanks to Tribooth. Austrian audio. Making passion heard. Source Elements. George the Tech Whittam. And Robbo and AP's international demos. To find out more about us, check theproaudiosuite.com.
Line up, ladies!
Here we go.
And there we go into the little talkover bed. So look, as I said, it's not brain surgery. Radio never is. But there's a few little things and a few little tricks involved, I guess, that probably just give it some colour, I suppose, which is what my intention was, to sort of make it stand out a little bit more than your average podcast opener, while sort of, not being too busy and in your face as well, to turn people off. So I guess if we break it down, Andrew is obviously the voice, and how I've used these three different versions of voiceover tracks, I guess, is the best way to put it. Is to use them to give each one of those tracks a little bit of a different sound, which gives Andrew some colour rather than just one long phrase of dialogue. So if we hide this one away, because there's nothing on there anyway, then let's just have a quick look here. So if I solo these ones out. This is just Andrew, I think, and he's got some stereo effects on him, as you'll hear.
With Tech to the VO stars. Founder of Source Elements. International audio engineer.
So as you can see, that one's a little bit thin. It's got some sort of widening sounds on it. It's got some delays and a little bit of reverb. And then that sort of contrasts up against the next track, this one here, which he's on female voiceover, but that's okay. It's only a name. So this one has a different sound again.
George Whittam. Robert Marshall. Darren Robbo Robertson.
So it's very similar in sound, but there's not that wide sort of delays and doubling that I've got going on that first track. So what happens when we put those together is you get that sort of A-B sort of sound.
With Tech to the VO stars. George Whittam, founder of Source Elements. Robert Marshall, international audio engineer. Darren Robbo Robertson. And global voice. Andrew Peters. Thanks to Tribooth. Austrian audio. Making passion heard.
So that does two things. It gives it a bit of colour, and also overlapping those files gives it a bit of pace. It sort of keeps it moving along because it's a very long could be very boring piece of dialogue. So by sort of overlapping them and putting those different effects on that keeps our brain interested in what's going on, it makes what could be a really boring piece of audio just have a little colour and a little bit of life. And then the third one down here is the thin sort of radio, telephone sound effects, which everybody uses in radio. It's been around forever, but you'll recognise it.
To the Pro Audio Suite.
And so the reason that there's two there is that I've layered a couple of effects. So the first one, I think you'll find I've used Butch Vig vocals here, and I've really just thinned him out. If we just listen to that one by itself. And I've managed to turn on pre-roll.
To the Pro Audio Suite.
So that's just thinned out without a lot going on. And then if we have a listen to this one here.
To the Pro Audio Suite.
That's a bit of, it's not as bright. It's sort of adding some bottom or some lower frequency information to there. And on that one, as you can see, I've not added any high frequency information. I've just chopped everything under 500. So there's still some lower mid stuff in there, but it's certainly not as bright and hyped as that first one. But when you put them all together,
to the Pro Audio Suite,
you got that sort of doubling effect. And if memory serves me, oh no, I was going to say I might have slightly panned them, but I haven't. So there you go. Sometimes I'll do that. Sometimes I'll slightly pan them left and right just to give a bit of a stereo effect as well. But in this case, I haven't. So that's what happens there. That's our voice tracks. If we take those out, we can go down here and we can have a look at our SOT, which is really pretty simple. This is our sound off tape. If I solo those up so you can hear them.
Hi.
Hello, everyone.
So sort of just a call and response, I guess. I mean, hi, hello, everyone. Just to give it a bit of colour in there. And processing-wise, there's a bit of EQ going on. I've chopped everything high and I've chopped a lot low. And then just a compressor on there to control all that. So there's really not a lot going on there, although down on the bus, when we get down there later on, I think you'll find there's probably a couple of effects going on there. And then we have the music track, which in itself is relatively simple. This would be something I would have found on Epidemic Sound, which is the music service I use for our royalty-free music. But it goes a bit like this. So actually, there's and so I think I did this on my old machine. So there's a lot of printed effects on here. So I'm guessing I was running out of CPU by the time I got to the mix here. So I've printed a lot of stuff. And by print, I mean this delay here, rather than you would normally have it sitting there and just have it playing each time it got the information. But what I've actually done is I've printed that to, or made a hard copy of it, so that I could take the plugin off and not have to use up the CPU. So that's a classic way of ending a little piece of music. If I don't want an ending, I just want it to stop, then just a bit of delay on there at the same tempo as the piece of music, and it just gives it a little bit of a finish, because as you'll hear in a minute, it's going to come back in. And then we go back in there. So look, pause in radio imaging is everything. Those little moments of silence, or where everything seems to stop, drags the listener's attention back in, because all of a sudden you're like, hey, what happened to that? It's disappeared. So that's the use of silence there. The music track runs underneath that big long piece of audio we were talking about with AP, where we go through all the hosts and the sponsors. And then down here at the back, this is where we sort of we get into our transition from the main piece of music, from the intro, into sort of this trailing out piece, which is sort of a talk over bed that just lets the music gently disappear under Andrew as he introduces the show. So let's just have a quick listen to that. I'll skip these bits here because we'll get to those in a minute. So just have a listen to this. So that's just a fairly simple music edit. If I couldn't get that right, I would be very disappointed. And then the vocals didn't come with this piece of music. They would have come from probably like a DJ, a couple of DJ music sites that I subscribe to, or music producer sites where you get kick drum samples, vocal samples, bass guitar samples, blah, blah, blah. I would have found this there. And it's that little vocal hook that says "sound good to me." And so what I've done is I've just sort of stuttered it to give it a build up so it doesn't just appear from nowhere. So that sounds like this. And again, I've printed the effects down here, and again, so it doesn't sound so chopped off, it just goes like this. And that just gives it a nice little ending and blends it in nicely to our loop music that runs under Andrew. And then finally down here is just sound design. So this is the zips and the zaps and the whooshes that go underneath our little opener at the beginning. If I solo these up, you can hear that. Maybe.
Y'all ready to be history? It started.
And so those last two effects sort of run underneath our little stop here and give that a little bit more of an impact as we stop the music there, if we put those in place. And you can see that little riser thing is giving our sort of brain the indication that something else is coming. So look, that's how it went together. Just quickly, without getting into too deeply into the mix process, our voiceover, all of these tracks up here come down into buses, which is where everything gets sort of a final processing. So these multiple tracks get mixed down into a stereo track. So this one is that first voiceover of Andrew's up here that we lay it up. And that comes into here, and on there's a vocal rider, which is sort of like an automated volume. It's pretty much compression, but much more control. So it's sort of like it's more like a fader movement than compression. But I mean, anything that attenuates volume is compression. So there's that there. It sort of rides the volume, and then into a compressor, which isn't working very hard. And I can show you those working now. If I go back up here.
With Tech to the VO stars, George Whittam, founder of Source Elements, Robert Marshall, international audio engineer.
And the compressor.
With Tech to the VO stars, George Whittam, founder of Source Elements, Robert Marshall, international audio engineer, Robbo Robertson.
So they're doing their job there. The next one down is a parallel voiceover. We've done a video on that on the channel, so I'll let you have a look what all that's about. But that's compressing very
with
hard.
Tech to the VO stars, George Whittam.
So that's compressing the hell out of it. And if you want to know how that works, as I said, take a look at that video. Here's our effects. So there's what's that? The Abbey Road Chambers. So that's like a room sort of reverb. This is the vocal doubler that gives us that stereo widening that I was talking about. And then my favorite effect on just about any voiceover is a flanger. Open it up nice and wide and just bury it back in behind, and it just gives your brain this sense of a little bit of width to the voiceover, no matter what you're doing. I sometimes use it in commercials if it's in, if it fits with what I'm doing. Obviously, you don't just throw it in for the hell of it. But yeah. So then the second bunch of effects that we were talking about on the different voiceover is Abbey Road Chambers again, the doubler too, but this time tighter and less of it, and again the meta flanger, and then that female voiceover track that I call it that we've used it on has only got the vocal rider on it, so that's not compressed, which is again giving it a bit of a difference to what's already there, I guess. There's my parallel track again, and then what do we go? We go Abbey Road Chambers. Geez, I was into my Abbey Road Chambers this day, wasn't I? And the doubler again, and metaflanger again there. So obviously those are all set to different settings though, which gives us that mix. And then the last one, here we go. This is the thinned out stuff. So as you can see, that gets a compress there. And then gets a peak limit because that sort of really thin sound can lead itself to some nasty peaks sneaking through. So that's really only just touching it. It's not doing too much. And then just the metaflanger on there, but much heavier in this case because that's that sort of phasey, sort of washy effect that's happening on Andrew. Then all my voiceover tracks, come into what I call VO sum. So all these effects and all these different voices are coming into another track, which has just got a bit of EQ on it. And what I use that for is just to sort of, this is where in the process I've balanced all the sounds of the mix. And what I'm doing now is I'm using this EQ just to sort of get my voice tracks to sit in with the music. So if the music has a lot of high frequency and my voiceover has a lot of high frequency, then I might boost I might boost it here and then cut some in the music, and we'll have a look at that in a minute. So obviously here I have boosted a little bit. I've done a bit of a chop down very low around there on Andrew's voice, so around the 100. So there's a bit of bass in that music, so that's probably why I've done that. Just a limiter, which is really just stopping any accidents. It's not doing very much. The interesting part of this is what I call the bass mix. So this is the mix of everything else besides voice. So all the other tracks come down to here, which is my music, my sound effects, my SOT, all that sort of stuff come into here. SOT doesn't. SOT comes into VO sum. So we've got a compressor on there, but it's not compressing everything. It's sidechained, which again I've done a video on. So basically what it's doing is it's listening to Andrew's voice and it's compressing based on that. So what it's doing is it's just sort of very slightly just ducking everything underneath Andrew, which obviously helps him pop out a bit. And then we were talking about EQ before, and this is an automated version of that. This is called Track Spacer. And so what it's doing is a bit like our side-chained compressor. This is side-chained EQ, I guess, for want of a better term. So it's actually, rather than looking as an overall thing, it's actually looking at frequencies, and it's ducking frequencies of the music and everything else around Andrew as well. So it just makes him pop a bit more. So I'll just show you how they work. If we duck back up here and find, so this is the side-chain compressor.
With Tech to the VO stars, George Whittam, founder of Source Elements, Robert Marshall, international audio engineer.
So you can see that working there. And then Track Spacer, you'll see, is working across a frequency range. These ones here is basically is the high cut and the low cut. So it's actually anything that's grayed out, it's not affecting. It's only affecting here, which is, in this case, in the mid ranges of Andrew, which is where the bulk of the voice quality comes from. I really don't want it affecting the high and the very low stuff. It's mostly being cut anyway, or rolled off. So yeah, but you can see that working here.
With Tech to the VO stars, George Whittam, founder of Source Elements, Robert Marshall, international audio engineer, Robbo Robertson, and global voice, Andrew Peters.
So the blue line is Andrew's voice. That's the side-chained information that's coming in. And the white line, as it ducks down here, is obviously how much it's doing, and then I can control the amount of that here in the high cut and the low cut. So yeah, and then finally, those two channels just get fed into my mix bus, and because the whole podcast gets mastered, I really don't do any mastering at this stage. Because it's going to get squashed and EQ'd and compressed with everything else once the episode's finished. So all I do is I just run a tiny bit of compression, and that's really just glue. That compression isn't trying to solve any sort of volume issues or anything like that. It's just trying to help everything stick together. And if you A/B it, you probably won't hear a lot of difference, but if you sort of listen sensitively, you'll probably hear a little bit of what's going on.
Y'all ready to be history? It started.
Welcome.
Hi.
Hello, everyone.
To the Pro Audio Suite.
These guys are professional. They're motivated.
With Tech to the VO stars, George Whittam, founder of Source Elements, Robert Marshall, international audio engineer, Robbo Robertson, and global voice, Andrew Peters. Thanks to Triboo, Austrian Audio, making passion heard. Source Elements.
So that's it there. And then the final stage for me is I print everything because I just find it so much easier. So I have these tracks down here and I can go through and I can record, enable all of those. And because with radio imaging, it's such a good idea to save not just the final mix, but save work parts and anything that you've made that you might find useful in the future. I have these other mixes. So this one here is my full mix. Here is the bass. So basically, I then have a mix of everything without Andrew's voice, so I can store that away if I want to use it in the future. I have Andrew's processed voice, so I can keep that aside and use it again in the future. So if I'm in a rush, for example, not so much with the podcast, but with radio imaging, if I need a piece of voiceover and I really want to save some time, I can grab something that's already been EQ'd, compressed and processed, throw it over a new piece of audio for a sweeper or something, for example, and pretty much just mix it out because it's already processed. And the same with the effects. So all the effects that I've made further up, that sound design stuff turns up here too. So if I hit record on that, you can see how that works.
Y'all ready to be history? It started.
Welcome
Hi. Hello, everyone.
to the Pro Audio Suite
These guys are professional, they're motivated.
with Tech to the VO stars. George Whittam, founder of Source Elements. Robert Marshall, international audio engineer. Darren Robbo Robertson and global voice. Andrew Peters, thanks to Tribooth. Austrian Audio, making passion heard. Source Elements. George the Tech Whittam and Robbo and AP's international demos. To find out more about us, check theproaudiosuite.com.
Line up, ladies. Here we go.
And there you go. That's a podcast opener. I guess if you're wondering in terms of time, look, it's such a long time ago now, but I would imagine something like that probably took me a couple of hours, which would have included writing a script and finding the work parts, sourcing the piece of music. I mean, sourcing the vocals can be difficult because you not only need the right lyric, you've also got to find something that's in a similar sort of key at a similar sort of tempo, although I can manipulate that. And just if you're interested, that happens with this piece of software called Pitch and Time Pro, which allows me to take a tempo of something. I can tell it the original tempo and I can tell it the tempo I want it to go to. And down here, I can tell it the key I'm at and the key in here that I want it to go to, and pretty much press render and it will do it for me. So it's a bit of a cheats way of doing it. And some nice stuff if you're a sound designer and you're not aware of Serato Pitch and Time. You can also draw in all sorts of wonderful little freaky things that sort of play with pitch and tempo and time. And make some really cool sound designy things if you sort of tweak that. So Serato Pitch and Time. I don't know of many good radio producers who don't use it. I do another podcast called the Imaging Hangout, and I think everybody we talk to on that show mentions Pitch and Time somewhere in an interview. So and we've done plenty of them. So another great piece of software. But there you go. That's the opener. The closer was made pretty much the same. If you're interested, we can go through that. But it was pretty much the same process. So there you go, Bill. I hope that's answered your question, and we'll catch you next time.